All right, back for week 13, week 14, I think, actually. Oh, that might say 13 in there. Let's see, did I get that? Nope, I did update it. Perfect. All right, so welcome to week 14 of live coding with Android Kotlin and architecture components. And what we're doing with this project is creating this display right here. And this wants me to just refresh the page real quick to get rid of this status bar up there. Also, that's no good, scheduled maintenance. Hope that doesn't affect this stream. But what we're trying to create is an app that shows the data of trading Ethereum tokens for US dollars. So kind of like Bitcoin, just a different one. And what we see is we've got a section over here where people can say they want to sell a certain amount of Ethereum for however many dollars. And then down here, people who want to buy a certain amount, like 120.13 something, for 388.50 cents. Then we've got a price chart in the middle. And on the right, whenever two people agree to a trade, we see that reflected over here. And without further ado, here's the app as it is right now. And we have a trade history section that should be up to date. Yep, looks good. We have the order book section that is a recycler view that has the ask orders up top, which is the red ones, and it's got a bunch of the green orders down bottom. And what's really cool is we get this recycler view to start right in the middle. So you saw when I clicked on order book, it started here. So we started the order book, or we started the recycler view in the middle, which is pretty cool. And what we're working on in this stream is this price chart page, which, should we update that name? Order book, trade history, price chart, charts. That's not good. So before I fix that real quick, let's pop over here, make sure everybody can hear me, make sure it looks good. And if it doesn't, just let me know. We can try to fix it. Okay. So we're going to be working on the price chart and making this look better. So first thing I'm going to do is this says charts, this says price chart. So let's fix that. And that's a really easy thing to fix. Right here, we are using an array to populate our bottom navigation drawer. And that makes it really simple for us because we have these bottom nav entries, which is just a class, a data class, which basically just means, you know, a really simple object. It just has a string and a fragment. And then at the bottom, we're able to use a function to iterate through this array to figure out what we're doing. But so we just need to change the name to, was it price chart? Yeah. Price chart. That'll take care of that. Then the next issue we have is that, well, for starters, we'll eventually get to the point where we want this chart to look a lot more like this chart with these little boxes, which I suppose I should explain. So these are, each of these little segments is called a candle. That's why this is called a candle chart. And all it means is that if it's red, the price went down during that period. And if it's green, the price went up during that period. And so here, each candle, one of these little shapes, is a 6-hour period. We can change it so that each one is, say, 1 day, and that shows a different story. And it's just a different way to look through your data. And so if it's green, it went up. If it's red, it went down. And the bottom part is the low of the time period, and the top is the high of the time period. So for this example, this red one, the price opened right here, it closed right here, and during that 6-hour time span, it got as low as here and as high as here. And if it's a green one, you just reverse that first part. So it would open here and close up here with a high up here and a low down here. So we'll get that drawn. But the bigger issue is this, I mean, it's kind of covering up the chart right here, and we'll see why that is right here. So if we go over to trade history and we scroll the page up just a little bit to there, and we can scroll further if we want, but just enough to get rid of this toolbar up here. And we click back on price chart, all of a sudden it looks great. So what we've got here is two screens that need to be scrollable, or two fragments rather, that need to be scrollable, and one that doesn't. One that needs to have its title bar and, or rather toolbar, and have the chart show the right way. So this is, we need to figure out a way to have a different, what's the word? Kind of a different function for this fragment. Okay, so let's see if there's any questions on any of that, and then we'll start trying to figure out how we can do that. Perfect. All right, back, and we're gonna start in main activity because that's what's open. And I think the issue with this, it could be a couple things. So for one, we've got, or rather, let me back up. What allows us to do this scrolling and this goes away and all that sort of stuff is this being in a coordinator layout. And if you're not familiar with what you're seeing here, this is Anko, which is a Kotlin project that lets you write layouts very, very simply. So for example, we can see this frame layout. We just give it an ID, tell it to be match parent, and then we set a scrolling view behavior, which is what allows the frame layout to play nicely with this toolbar up here. So it's some combination of these scroll flags right here and this behavior of the frame layout that lets that scrolling happen. So my first thought to try and change that is that when we switch from trade history to price chart, we want to change the behavior of this frame layout from scrolling view to, I guess, null. Let's see what else comes in here. Bar layout dot behavior, scrolling view behavior. Huh. So maybe not null. Maybe we'll try behavior first and see what happens. And it needs to be a new one. All right, so let's try and do that. Too many spaces there. Down here in our switch fragment method, this is where we get to use a bottom nav entry to switch the fragment. So we create a fragment transition, take whatever fragment we're passing in from the entry, and remember if we scroll up to the top here, this bottom nav entry is just a pair of title and fragment. Very simple. And we replace that, and then if it's an open orders fragment, we scroll it to the middle, and here's where we update the title. So we want to find this same view, number 123, which it shows as an error, but as we saw the app is running, there's no error here. This is totally fine. When you're setting IDs for views in Androids, they just need to be integers. They don't need to be a resource. They can be, but they don't have to be. So since this is so far, we only have, one number, just easier to do it that way. And here we need to find that view and try to change it to not scrolling. And I guess that would be a good first step. So we can start by typing find, and here's find view by ID, which you'd be used to from Android, and then this one is from Kotlin, which just makes it a little shorter with the word find instead of find view by ID. And you tell it what type, it'd be a frame layout, and with an ID of 123. Now we could have also created a variable for this and then access that variable down here, but this should work. Yeah, we'll see. If it doesn't work, we'll create a variable. So we get our frame layout, then we need to get its layout parameters. So dot layout params, and that gives us its layout parameters. And now we need to do dot behavior, which is not going to exist. And that's because this layout parameters object is just a generic layout parameters object. And so what you need to do is you need to cast this to coordinator layout dot layout params. So again, this layout parameters object is just a general, and let's see if we can get that to pop up. So we come in here, we do dot layout params, and it's going to give us a view group dot layout params. Now view groups don't have behaviors, so that's why we don't see a behavior there. But then this coordinator layout dot layout params extends from the view group layout params, and maybe even extends from some other layout params as well, kind of in the chain. And it does have a behavior attribute, so that's where we get that. And then we can cast this, wrap it up so that now we have a coordinator layout dot layout params. Then we can do dot behavior, and we can set it to something else. So what was it? App bar layout, and we'll just try dot behavior. Oops. App bar layout dot behavior. And so putting it in here, this will change, and let's just put it at the beginning just to make sure that it's happening. this should change that behavior so that no scrolling is allowed, period. At least that's my guess, that changing from scrolling view behavior to just regular behavior will take away the scrolling part. And since we're not doing any conditional formatting around when this is going to run in our switch fragment method, it's going to run for all the fragments. So if we're not able to scroll the trade history view, which is the one that pops up when you first open the app, then we can agree that this worked and then take that solution back to getting it only to apply to the second page. Okay, and that did not work, so it's probably not done setting up the layout right here, because onCreate doesn't finish calling before we call switch fragment. Let's see if that's the case. Got to get the emulator that's currently connected. That helps. And then we want to put it on error channel and frame layout. Okay, let's see. Frame layout cannot be cast to app bar layout. Where is that happening? Interesting. It doesn't give us anything. None of this code is ours. Oh boy. Okay, so we'll have to do some figuring out to figure what that's all about. So let's read this one more time. So frame layout, and it's underscored, which means that it has to be this guy. And an anco underscore frame layout is just a regular frame layout that you can call .lparams on, basically, to set layout parameters. So it's just an easier to use frame layout. And it really is. I mean, let's pop in here just to show it off, because it's kind of cool how it all works. Frame layout, and let's grab this. Where's underscore frame layout? There it is. So it is just defines these lparams functions so that you can just set layout parameters very, very easily. And wow, lots of lparams functions, and that's it. That's all underscore frame layout is. So by using underscore layouts from Anko, you can set layout parameters super easily. Okay, so we got that, and it's telling us we can't cast something. Where would we even be casting that? Oh, app bar layout behavior. Let's log something up here. Switch fragment 1, switch fragment 2, and if we see 1 but not 2, we'll know for sure that that was the error line, and then we can start debugging that a little further. Go back to Android Studio there, and it stopped again. Okay, then let's check out Logcat here. Same issue, but wait, what are we seeing? Switch fragment. So let's see, switch fragment 1, 2, and then error. Did I? Okay, let's just comment out this whole line and make sure that that is the issue, because it should be. All right, that's been launched and it worked. So yeah, that's the issue. But weirdly, it went through it before doing anything. That is really strange. Okay, so let's back this out. And so we got that. It's set to scrolling view behavior. Maybe we could set it to null. We'll see what that does. Maybe behavior was not the right thing to set it to. And I think null is a lot more likely to give us an error too, which would be very helpful. Or rather, an error from our code, because it had no issue giving us an error. Hey, there we go. And just so you know, when it starts the app again, it clears it out entirely, the trade history, which is why we have to start from scratch each time. And I can scroll that. Interesting. Though that's not Maybe the chart will look good though. This is interesting. Let's see. The chart does, okay, let me come back, trade history, put the chart on, and the chart looks good. Okay, so we fixed something. Yeah, that makes it so that it doesn't play nicely. Okay. But we need it to be below that. Oh, that might actually be complicated. Let's see. Bar layout with a frame layout right below it with no thinning. So let's look at coordinator layouts documentation, because I think coordinator layout, let's see, coordinator layout doesn't really have a space in between. Oh, there it was right there. Come on, we're going. So coordinator layout, I think, might extend from relative layout. Nope, straight from view group. Oops, go forward. Let's see. By specifying behaviors for child views of a coordinator layout, you can provide many different interactions within a single parent, and those views can also interact with one another. View classes can specify a default behavior when used as a child of a coordinator layout using the default behavior annotation. Behaviors may be used to implement a variety of interactions. Anchor. Okay, let's look at behaviors. We have behavior, scrolling view behavior, bottom sheet behavior, floating action button, swipe, dismiss. Okay. I'm not super convinced by that. So it looks like by changing that property, we made it so that our trade history isn't really, I mean, it goes away and it comes back, but we're not having our content start below it anymore, which is what we wanted in the first place. So, I think we might just have to go for an offset, unfortunately, which is, it feels like a ham-fisted solution, but if that's the best way to do it, and I'm not having much success doing it another way, let's do it that way. So let's get rid of this. We'll run this again, and we'll need to run that. We'll need to find a way to get the height of bottom. Wait a minute, was that still scrollable? No, not that one. That one's scrollable. And it still hides. That's interesting. So maybe let's look at these. App bar layout, layout params, scroll flag. Oh, scroll flag enter always is probably a good search term. Scroll flag, enter always. Is that more than one word? Enter always. There we go. Enter always. The view will become visible when scrolling up. Okay. Top. Yeah, enter always collapsed. Normally, when only enter always is used, the toolbar will continue. Nope, don't want that. Exit until collapsed. Scroll down will normally cause the entire content to move. So it's just really not well suited to what we're trying to do. And with this, right now it's locked in place, but then we still have this bug where if we scroll up, come back. If we scroll up and we come over to price chart, it looks like that, which we don't want it to be scrolled anymore. Why would you be scrolled? You're not the same view, are you? I mean, you're not. This is a chart view. I guess it's a chart view, but that's the same container. But are you scrolling the frame layout? Okay. Scroll this, and that just works so well. Then you get to price chart, and we need to tell that thing to stop going away. Okay, what if we do put back what we had, which made that weird behavior, and let's also just get rid of these scroll flags and see what that does. So if we can find a way to make it work with the chart and a way to make it work without the chart, maybe we can kind of mix those together and then figure out what'll actually work. And I find that these sorts of like little bugs, like really, like we're not doing a lot of feature work right now, and these sort of little bugs usually end up being the bulk of your time as a developer, because these are the hardest to figure out. Okay, so this is showing it under, and it's still going away. Why are you going away? Oh, because we still have this behavior set. It's running really quick today though. Very nice. All right, and order book, you'll load faster maybe. There we go. Okay, now it's just at the top, the very top. So price chart's gonna look like, oh, it's still acting like it's scrolled to the bottom. That is weird. So what's interesting here is that when we scroll to the bottom of this view, which this view is a recycler view that's much, much longer than the price chart, and then we come to the price chart, we don't have our top section here, our toolbar. And when we pop back here, if we scroll all the way up, we can bring the toolbar back, and then if we bring it here, yay, the toolbar is back. So it's almost like it's saving the scroll position of the frame layout? Yeah, of the frame layout. That is bizarre. Anywho, we might just let that one go for now, if that seems to be a good solution. Okay, so what we might need to toggle here is the scroll flags. Or no, we need to toggle the scroll. How is that happening? Is this a fragment thing? Let's see. Switching, fragments, scroll position. List view position is always retained. Okay, that doesn't sound quite like what we're looking for. Nope, that's not what we want. No, we want where the scroll position seems to be being saved without us wanting it to. Although I think it probably has something to do with the coordinator layout. Search. Here we go. Yep. So the very common pattern, only thing that changes frequently is the fragment inside the container layout, just like we're doing. If any of the fragment has a scrolling element, upon scrolling, the coordinator layout will happily make position translations, including the toolbar and app bar layout. The real problem here is when the fragment gets replaced, the position of the toolbar remains the same. This is exactly our issue. 44 upvotes. I'm hopeful. Yep. How can one reset the toolbar position? Yikes. This is a nasty answer. To reset the scroll state, just get the app bar layout behavior object of our coordinator layout. No, wait, what? So this is, so it gets the coordinator, then it gets the app bar, then they get the layout params of the app bar, and they get the behavior from the app bar layout params, and then they call on nested pre-scroll. Oh my goodness. I hope, yeah, can we use this one instead? Okay, let's see. So it looks like we've got a few solutions we can try here. Pretty good. We can look at, let's start looking at this one. So first get an app bar layout reference. Then set expanded. Remember to use these. Have to reset smoothly with an animation. You know what? I might like this solution better. Let's try this. On the app bar layout behavior. Okay. So we've got it working so that when we, if I code order book or trade history, there is no title until the top. And if I put the title in, then come here, we have it. And if we scroll down and come to price chart, it's gone. But we want it to show up. So back in main activity, let's come down here, and behavior was the behavior of the app bar layout, which we don't have any way to access. So let's give us a way to access it. Latenit var app bar layout, and we could have also added an ID like we did for the other view. This frame layout, we added an ID and we accessed it using an ID because we do need to give it an ID, right, so we can use it in the fragment replace. All right, so we've got our app bar layout, which is app bar layout. We've got our coordinator layout, which is, let's just get a variable for this guy, val coordinator equals, oh no, we don't have our coordinator. Darn it. We're gonna have to create a bunch of variables. That's fine. Though it's nice to create them in the order that we're gonna see them, so things are a little easier to understand and read through quickly. So late init var, and this one's gonna be coordinator layout. And of course we need to set these up. Our layout equals all right, layout, coordinator layout, and that was app bar layout dot behavior. That was, what are you, behavior? Coordinator layout, no, it's app bars layout parameters behavior. Okay. App bar layout params, which we then need to as coordinator layout dot layout params. So it's, we were close. Then dot behavior, right? And that's the behavior. my goodness. Behavior equals that. What do you can it be null? Well, if you think it can be null. And what does it want for consumed? On nested pre-scroll. Consumed should be set to the distance that was consumed. What? Okay, sorry, they've got that there, which we should be able to copy as Java code, and it'll paste as Kotlin, which is awesome. Love when it does that. Perfect. Okay, so we've got that, and we've got our little null nonsense here, which keeps that behavior of the trade history. So when we scroll up, we don't get the toolbar until we scroll all the way to the top. And then we get it. Okay, so we're keeping that bit, I guess. And yeah, I guess we'll keep that. Okay, because that's what it is. Let's look at it. Oh. Really not a fan of when you have to do all these gymnastics to do something very, very simple. That is the way Android works sometimes. All right, trade history. And we can scroll down and we'll lose it. Actually, let's get it back. Come to price chart. See, it's still here. Order book, still got it. Make it go away. Wait, is that at the top? Are you only loading 10 or so into this? Okay, so this hasn't completed loading yet. And all right, there's order book at the top. Price chart top, make it go away. Price chart, it's back. All right, yay. So that worked, right? All right, let's put back the scrolling behaviors and see if that fixed that issue. All right, all those are coming back out. We're back to everything being normal except for this call. Which we might not want for the open orders fragment. Because we've got this scroll here, and then it's got this scroll here. Maybe that's not the best idea. We'll find out. All right, trade history. Let me scroll. That's nice. Wonder if there's a way to make it so you can't scroll until there's something to scroll. I'm sure there is. Probably out of scope right now. That feels like a not very exciting development. There's the price chart. That looks great, and that one's locked in place. Good. Order book. Order book. Nothing. So that's still loading. There we go. All right, so let's test this out. We've got order book. And then down here, no order book, price chart. Yes, all right. So we fixed that. Now, we just have to fix this part. So, but that does look good. Though, wait, when we jumped to order book, did it start at the top or in the middle like it's supposed to? In the middle, and with the top showing. That's great. That's great. That is really good. Okay. Awesome. There's a big order up at 390 there. 870. 870 times like almost 400. That's a lot. Okay. Cool. Next issue. Now we need our price chart to be above this line. And I think the best way to solve it would be if we could find a way to define this middle view as from here to here. But unfortunately, it's too big. It comes down to here, which So now we need to figure out the height of the bottom bar here, and then offset our chart by that amount, and we'll be able to draw it. So let's do it. Bottom navigation height. Oh, and I like to do this sometimes. We found this here. Just plop it. What? Just plop it in here. So normally I write code and it's pretty easy to read what's going on, at least for me. But whenever especially if you name things well, but whenever you do something like this and it's just like, what? I'm gonna come and look back at this in a couple of weeks, and without a comment about it or having a link is really nice. You're just never gonna remember why this was necessary. Or you might not even remember what it does. This is a pretty ridiculous call here. All right, so that's good. We got that fixed. Let's check on over, see if there's any comments, questions, concerns. All right. Cool. So back to figuring out the height of our bottom navigation view. So let's see, is there a default bottom navigation view height? Bottom navigation view height. Did I search for that, or did it just have good answers already? I must have searched for it already. Height. Nope, that's not the right one. Bottom navigation view. Height Android. What do we have it set to? Over here, I believe it's defined as a menu, or is that just the items? I guess that's just the items. Is it? Then it would be a layout, right? Yeah, bottom navigation. Oh, look, we define it as 5060p. Awesome. Okay, so we've got 5060p. That is so awesome. This makes this a really easy problem to solve. So down here we just need to offset everything, which actually, let's refactor this. So this is, and this on draw call, this is where we're drawing the candles. So we start for the chart, we start by using this endpoint. We get the endpoint, we retrieve the data, and we parse it into an array of candles in a really cool way. So here we have a candle object, which just has the time, the low of the period, the high of the period, the open of the period, where it closed for that period, and the volume of that period, which is how many shares were traded. Or I guess they're not technically shares, they're cryptocurrency tokens or coins or whatever, but the volume is the last parameter. And what's cool here is we can take the data and split it by some thing. Here it's that, and that gives us an array of, so it comes to us as a string that has all of this data between brackets. So we split it on the brackets, which then gives us an array of each one. Then we can map those, split it again, and then pull out each one into a new candle. And then since a map takes from, so if you mapped, say, numbers to letters, 1 could go to A, 2 would go to B. So here we're just mapping string data to a candle for each string in our array that this returns, or rather list. I'm not really sure if it returns an array or a list, but it doesn't matter. And then that's our candles array, which is the candles we would like to paint on the screen. Then in our onDraw call, if candles is not empty, which, cool thing about Kotlin, if you write this like candles dot size not equal to 0, it's gonna say, hey, replace this size check with is not empty. And then you could say, okay. And so that's just a little easier to read, which is nice. Then in here, we set the candle width, the highest price of the whole period, and the lowest price, or not the whole period, but the highest price of the whole chart, the lowest price of the whole chart. And these are cool. We look into the candles array, and we tell it to max by which means we want it to find the maximum candle by using the high property of the candle. And then it's going to give us, this is going to return the candle with the highest high. And then we take that high. And that gives us the highest price of all the candles. And then we do the same thing for the low. We take the candles and we get the lowest candle determined by the low property. And then we grab that low property and we call it the lowest price. And then with the highest price and the lowest price, that gives us a way to put a top and a bottom on our chart. Then we define for each candle, we get a left, a right, a bottom, and a top, and we just draw a shape. And this math right here, we can actually clean this up a little bit. This is painting just the math required to get it on the right spot. So we need to take the low minus the lowest price, the high minus the highest price, and we need to multiply them by the height of the canvas to space them evenly, or space them correctly onto the canvas. You need to scale it, that's the word. You need to scale it by the canvas height, or else you're not going to get anything. So this right here is just a ratio. So this is always going to be between 0 and 1, and it's going to be between, let's go to here, so between 0 down here and 1 up here. And then you use that ratio and you multiply it by the height of the whole canvas, and that gives you where it should be on the height, or on the y-axis here. And then we start by doing canvas.height minus that value to flip it, because in the Android world, and most or all, maybe computers in general, probably most, all is probably too strong, the x or the y-axis goes down. So this up here is the point 0, 0, and this down here is the point 0, probably 1920, 1080, or 1920 for this screen. So 0, 1920. So y direction is positive down like this, and x is positive to the right still. So x is normal, y is flipped, which is why we have to do this canvas.height minus our value here. And since that's a little difficult to read, let's pull that out into a function. So function scaled height, and we can see what parameters it requires later. And since these are probably floats, right? Let's see, high, yep, floats. So let's go with that returns a float. And it's going to take in, it's a lot of parameters to make it take in. I wonder if we can have those be, actually, let's do it this way. We can do, oops. How did, no, how did that get on the clipboard? What? Did I delete that and not cut it? All right, anywho, let's create that function in here. So this is going to take in, oh, and we need to change our canvas.height again. So val canvas, or rather height, let's just call it height. Actually, is height already a property though? Yeah, height is a property. Canvas height, or real height, that's a good one, real height. Because that's not used already and does a bit to tell us what is actually going on. So real height, this is going to be canvas.height minus dip 56, and dip is a function from Anko that just lets us get dp values, and it was 56, right? I think so. So then we have scaled height in here, and what we want to do is take, or rather return real height. So we're following along with either one of these lines, and we're going to have to take in a value. We'll just call it y, and we want to return real height minus y minus lowest price divided by highest price minus lowest price. This is the ratio part. And then times real height. All right, and then since this is just one statement, we can actually turn it into a one-liner and don't have to declare the return type since it can infer that it will be a float. And then we have scaled height as a function, and we can just do scaled height, candle.low, and scaled height, candle.high. And isn't that nice? We get to define the function right here, just end line with everything else. Actually, we should put a space between it because it's a function. It's a little different than a val there, but it's just super simple. One line function lets us knock that out. You don't have to declare it anywhere else. We don't have to make these variables have scope larger than they need. And another thing, you can even declare this as an anonymous function using a val if you wanted to. That's something you could do. Okay, so let's see if this did it. And if canvas.height minus DIP56 didn't do it, there might be another small change we need to make. It's always a little difficult working with this stuff numerically before you get to see it. So I find especially when you're working with the canvas, it's nice to make some small changes, run it, make sure you're on the right track, small changes, run it. Just good advice all around, really. All right, trade history. These are all going to get deleted. That's the first step. Price chart. That looks really good. I think we've done it. I think we've got the price chart. It's not scrolling away. Come over to the order book and scroll through there. Make that go away. Come back. Price chart's looking awesome. All right. Now, let's try to make it look a little bit prettier. So, first, there's a lot going on here. So these aren't very wide candles. So I'm not sure that we'd even be able to see anything if we put candles here. So let's restrict this to taking only the last 100, maybe. Let's try the last 100. So candles, and we do dot for each indexed, and where do we start? Left is canvas.width minus candle width. So we're starting on the right and coming back this way, which I think means that our data, yeah, I mean, that would make sense. It's old data is at the end, and then the new data is at the, the new data would be at like the 0th index is what this is telling us. So the most recent trade, or the most recent candle, is going to be, I guess you could look at it as the top of the list. So we start there and we work our way backwards from the right edge, yeah. Since we start with this canvas width minus part right here. And if you didn't know, with middle mouse, you can, middle mouse click, you can click and highlight random sections like that, which is really useful for when you're doing things that are nicely lined up. So if you wanted to delete all these val keywords, done. So pretty cool. All right. So we want to reduce the amount of things in our candles. So let's do candles dot take last 100, and that ought to do it. So, and it should then, let's see, we'll get this up, and well, let's go and let's check, make sure there's not any questions. Oh, hey Moe, we are trying to build this, which is a place where people can buy and sell Ethereum tokens for US dollars. And specifically, we're working on this chart section here. So we're trying to build it out to the point that it looks, you know, a little better. We want some boxes with some lines on them. We want some different colors. We might not leave the green ones open in the middle. We might fill those. That's more of a stylistic decision than anything. And let's see, he said something about canvas too, I think. Whoops. And this is not the canvas from browser, but it's similar. I haven't used the browser canvas much at all, though the idea of a canvas and that being what you draw on and how you know draw rect and all these other functions is pretty standard. So I would assume it's pretty similar, but I don't know for sure. So did that run? Yeah, and let's get back over here. Look at the chart. Order book. No, price chart rather. Oh, that's funny. Right. So that is what that's going to look like, isn't it? So we take the last, that is so funny. We took the last 100 there. But of course, that's not quite the right way to do it because we're calculating the highest price and the lowest price based on, you know, regular candles. So let's take this out. And then instead, let's come up here and we'll do if candles is not empty. Let's create. I want to call it like val working candles, but that I feel like that's just too long. So temp candles, chart candles. I call this chosen candles. So I want to come up with something that'll be just for a smaller subset of candles, sub candles. Let's just do that. Sub candles equals candles dot take last 100, and then we want to use that instead of candles. Yep, cool. All right. All right, and then I'm just going to run that so we can see what it looks like. Again, running it is your friend. That's how we find out what's going wrong. That's how we avoid making big mistakes. All right, that looks pretty good. We've got a little bit of width to these now, so you can see something. And if we pop over to here, we actually, let's see, what time frame were we using for these candles? These are granularity equals 15 times 60. Is that 15 minutes then? So let's come in here and do 15 minutes. Does that look like anything? Maybe? I don't think so though. So we're doing, let's look at the API, Control F granularity. There we go. So granularity, desired time slice and seconds. So yeah, that is 15 minutes. And it's interesting here that it says the maximum number of data points for a single request is 200 candles. Though without specifying a start and end time, it does return more than 200 candles. All right, let's change that granularity to hour. 60 times 60. And run it again. Then we'll change that to here. Look at hour candles. We should see, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Call that 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, maybe 60 candles showing right there. 60, 70-ish. So we should be showing a little bit more than this. This might be it. Oh, that was interesting. Guess we haven't fixed whatever that was. That is really tricky to look at though. And portrait view. Small this up. So it looks like it, you know, we can even just try and match this guy, kind of like this, maybe. And maybe we've got this peak here. You know, this is a little bit difficult to read. Let's add some color in, then it'll be a little easier to see where everything is. So let's get that color section done. Let's grab our red. Let's get another paint color here. Green paint. Actually, we can, oh, I guess we did declare red paint as well, so that's fine. So let's do candle. Actually, this is really simple. Val paint equals if candle dot close is higher than or equal to candle dot open, then it equals green paint, and else it equals red paint. Red paint. There we go. And then we want to use paint instead of green paint, and we're done. So in Kotlin, if statements can return values, and they can go in one line, and they replace the ternary operator. So if you're used to seeing this, you know, question mark something, colon something, and Kotlin, that's just an if else. All right, we've got that running again, right? Hey, there we go, that's colorful. So this is a red one way down here, okay. What? Come on. There we go. So green. Wait, what? Are we? All right, let's back up again. Oh no, are we just drawing the bodies? So we are only drawing. Okay, so we're drawing from candle.low to candle.high. Let's draw from candle. Oh, that's why that's a little different. Okay. Candle low to candle high. So to match up with this chart, we want to look at the long, what we're drawing is a rectangle from the top, the very top to the very bottom of either of these candles. Which still, let's go back over here actually. Something doesn't feel right, does it? SUSD candles granularity of 60 times 60. What do they show an example of using that granularity in here? Granularity, it's our time in seconds. Okay. So let's spot check one of these. Oh wait, oh no, we're logging that. We're not logging each candle, but perhaps we should. Or maybe we're taking the wrong candles. Maybe we need to take first. Or would that just be take? I guess they don't have take first. They have take and take last. Yeah, I guess it would be take first, wouldn't it? Well, it wouldn't be the first time I've got to feel stupid today. Such is the life of a developer. All right, price chart, and actually we did like being here, and so that's another bug we'll have to fix. Is that say we go to order book and then we rotate, and it doesn't like being upside down, so it won't rotate that way, but it will rotate back this way to trade history. Want. So we'll have to fix that as well. Come back and price chart. Okay, that looks much better. And we're on hours, and yeah, that is it. Yep, so green, so this green spike right here is right here. So we've got green, red, green, red, green, 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 red, green, red, green, 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 And then 2 reds, 3 greens, bunch more red. 2 red, 3 green, bunch more red. Yeah, perfect. Awesome. And let's see, would that have been easy enough to spot in portrait mode? Of course it switches to trade history still. Not easy, not quite as easy. And not quite as honest either. So it looks, I suppose that's an issue with our chart at the moment, is that without labels, this doesn't mean anything. So for example, any chart we show here, even if it's going from $1 to $1.01, it's going to take up the whole height because that's how it's programmed right now. So this, see here how it looks more normal, not so much here. Though charts are more of a landscape mode thing, and it does look better in landscape mode. And it still shows the uptrend, so that's true. It is going up. All right, let's try and tackle that other problem, and then we'll get back to doing some more chart stuff. So hopefully rotating the device should be easy enough to switch it, keep the fragment in the right mode. So let's do that. Main activity, problem, when we create our fragment, we call switch fragment. Or when we create the activity, we call switch fragment, and we pass in that bottom nav items 2, which is trade history. So not quite what we want it to switch to. So let's add Control O on save instance state. Darn it, I forget if you need to call super or not. On save instance state. Really, it didn't save on save instance state. Just show me somebody doing it here. Always call super, okay. And just saved instance state. Yeah, not sure where you're coming from. Out persistent state. Save instance state, out state. You know, I'd rather you be called bundle. So that's Shift F6 there. Oh, yeah, got it down there. And then bundle dot put int key fragment. We should use a variable for that, but we don't. I usually don't until I have at least more than one. Or I won't start thinking about it until then. Oh, fragment and or state. Fragment state. Fragment ID. Yeah, we'll just stick with fragment for now. It's easy to change. And we need to save this number now, so let's do switch fragment. And oh man, it takes in a bottom nav entry. It doesn't take in which one. What do we call you, switch fragment? All right, let's change you to take in an integer. Fragment ID int val entry equals bottom nav items. Oh, darn it, that's lowercase. Bottom nav items. And then we want to pass in our fragment ID. What are you complaining about? Oh, of course, that is an array, so we need to use array accessors. And then here we'll pass in 2. And then this will be Oh, and let's see, can we do, so we can select these two pretty easily with the middle mouse click, super select, double click, get rid of you, get rid of you, and there's that. Okay, so am I missing? Okay, here we go. And then here, we need to save out our fragment ID, current fragment. Current fragment ID equals 2. And then right here, we'll set, oh, and I set that to a var, didn't I? Or a val, rather. No, I set it to a var, did I really? Nice. I almost always mess that up. I usually set everything to a val, and then it comes back to bite me. All right, so current fragment ID, it's set. We're saving it. Then we need to get it back. So Control O on restore instance state. And do we let that one get called first? Just want to look at somebody's code. On restore, they did not call super, and they did there, and they called super first, which I think looks cleaner, so I'm going to do that. Super. Okay, and that doesn't get rid of the override, so I think we can. So I noticed, and I've not read anything about it or anything, but when you override functions using the override dialog and Kotlin, it declares everything as nullable. And a lot of the times it's not nullable. And if you make something, if you take away the question mark and it was actually nullable, I think it usually throws an error, but just be wary. So on restore instance state, we've got our bundle. We're going to get our, so bundle, saved instance state rather. Can we just call you bundle? It's a little shorter. Bundle.get ent fragment with a default value of 2. And we'll call this fragment ID. Actually, we just need to call switch fragment to that. Okay, does that fix our problem? Trade history, price chart, rotate device, price chart, yay. Order book, awesome. Though, I'm a little curious, let's comment these out, and I want to get rid of this switch fragment. See what happens there. So it'll start with an empty frame layout. Then we'll click on something, it'll jump to that frame layout. Then we'll come back and it should be an empty frame layout again. So empty, actually it says trade history. Well, it says trade history because that's just the toolbar. This is an empty frame layout. And if we click trade history, it'll load. Perfect. And we hit price chart and order book and they'll all load, but as soon as we rotate it, that's interesting. So maybe we could keep that around. Okay, so what this shows us is that we might, why would the frame layout stick? Huh. So let me keep playing with this a second. We got our price chart, rotate it. it keeps the price chart, so it keeps the attached fragment. Presumably without calling switch fragment, which we would be able to see. Let's find out. So switch fragment 1, 2. Yeah, it does not call switch fragment. Though the issue, of course, there is that it doesn't start out on anything. So we wouldn't be able to do this. So I think our solution is fine because I can't think of a way around it. That is just sort of the stuff you have to save. Well, actually, there is kind of a way around it. Do we have an app class for this yet? Yeah. So we could put something up in here in this app class. Anything in the app class is sort of like a retained. A fragment has a life cycle of, a lot longer than an activity. Specifically, the app class has the life cycle of the whole app. So until your app is killed, this is going to be good to go, which is why we can get away with calling clear database and download order book and the onCreate of our app class. It's only going to happen one time, period, for the whole lifetime of the app. Because the only reason onCreate from the app class would be called a second time is if the app was killed and needed to be created again. And since this is your actual app, it means actually killed, not like activity killed where you just rotate it and it dies. This is for real. So we got that going for us. And back here, let's see, where were we? We were trying to figure out if we could do something a little more suave than this. Because I'm not a huge fan of it. It works well though. Maybe we'll stick with it. Doesn't add. Let's see what it adds. So it added, we needed to have this current fragment ID, which we have to save off somewhere. And we need to then persist it using the combo of onSave instance state and onRestore instance state. Super standard stuff. But it's also possible. Well, I guess I can't think of a way off the top of my head that we'd be able to call this without it being here. So we'll stick with this because we sort of need that call to switch fragment. Yeah. Okay, we'll stick with that. And it's more fun to move on to the chart stuff anyway. All right, so run it again. And it's probably still running the good version anyway. But we'll get that going. Let me see if there's any more questions, and then we'll move on to adding wicks to our candles, which is the word for the long part above and below. There is not a QA session after this exercise. And our native app's dead. No, there is so much going on in the Android world and the iOS world. They're just not going to be dead anytime soon. And are there any third-party frameworks for Android development? Kotlin, I mean, not sure what you're looking for there. There are so many ways to build apps. You can use C# with Xamarin to build apps for Android and iOS, I guess. I don't know much about it, but that's something that's existed for a long time and lots of people actually use. So that's one way you can do it. One thing I really like that's come around recently is Flutter. And Flutter is by Google, and it lets you build apps for iOS and Android at the same time with one code base. And it uses a programming language called Dart, which is not a very popular programming language, but it is very popular at Google. And yeah, this is a cool project. It's very much an alpha still, but if there's anything that's coming along, I think Flutter is closest to being the best way to do it outside of native. Native's still definitely the best way to do it. And then of course there's React Native, which can we get something for that too. But React Native it works. I think React Native is the right choice if you have a web team who you want to build your mobile app. Because it works great, or it works good enough, but I haven't used it that much, but I've seen people start to lean towards other things. Though if you live in a React world, there's certainly nothing wrong with React Native. Then of course there's other solutions like PhoneGap, which I've never looked into seriously. But if we can get that to load. Yeah, so there's, I mean, and these tools have existed for years now, and they've not killed off what we're able to do with just Android native stuff. But all right, let's get back and see what we can do with this chart. Actually, let's make sure that it's working. Got a chart, and we rotate the device, and we want to rotate it this way. So, because if we rotate it this way, the bottom is on top and it won't rotate. So let's just show that again, because this annoys me a lot of times. And you got to remember, you want to rotate, if you want to be in portrait mode, you want your camera, which is right here, on top. So get that guy and put him on top, and then we'll rotate. All right. So now we need to get the wicks and the bodies separated. So the wick, when you're talking about candles in a stock chart sense, is this part right here. It's this long skinny line. It's just, I mean, I guess it's just a line. And then the body is the word for the square part. So let's start by just drawing the bodies. Since we've already got, in our chart view, we've already got a draw rect call, so we don't have to change too much to get that going. And left, top, right, bottom. So these are going to be different depending on, so we might need to open up this if statement to be a little bigger, because a red candle will have a close that we need to have be the bottom, and a green candle will have a close because it'll close higher than it opens, that needs to be the top. So these are just slightly different. So I think I'll write it a little verbosely and then go from there. So we've got left and right correct. And we'll start right here, trying to get just the bodies right now, which is just the square part of the candle. Well, more like that. So we've got val bottom is going to be, actually, let's start with if candle.close greater than or equal to candle.open. Good. And else. And so in here, we want to set paint to green. And we want to do another thing. So let's see. Since we can't do this awesome if statement the same way, because we want to have more than one thing in here. We need to define different top and bottom values. So we'll start by doing this again the naive way. Var paint equals green paint. Actually, we don't even need an if, do we? Okay, so let's just comment this all out so we can have space to reuse those variables without getting errors. So var paint equals, and we'll call it green paint. And then since it's already green paint, and here we would set paint equals red paint. And we don't have to set this to green because we've got green as the default. Then we want to do var bottom, or just bottom, equals, and this is going to be scaled height of candle dot open. And I think I'm seeing how this code's going to fall together. And this is going to be close. So if it's red, then the bottom is the close because it opened and it closed below that. All right, and then we want to do the same thing with top. Scaled height, whoops, height, candle dot close, and top equals sca_h candle.open. All right, and that gives us top, bottom, left, right. And then we actually don't, we can just reverse this. So if close is less than open, do this, and then that works. That should do it. Uncomment out this line. And I think that should do it. Let's see, we should now just be drawing the square portions of the candles. So it should look a little more disjointed. Oh, and we can make our emulator bigger again. All right, price chart. Yeah. So see here, this one and this one kind of match up, and they do match up right here. Then there's this wick down at the bottom that we're missing right now. So we'll have to get that in there. So let's do that. We need to get a midpoint. And this is going to be right minus left divided by 2. Yeah, those are already all floats, but we can put an F there just to be sure. And what this will give us is the offset that we need. So it's left plus that, and that'll be the midpoint. So again, we start from the left, and then we get the difference from the right edge to the left edge. And we take that, we divide it by 2, and we add that to the left edge, and that gives us the midpoint. So there's a midpoint. Then we can get rid of this part. We've got the midpoint. We want to take, let's see what we've got. We've got canvas.draw line, maybe draw line. Great. We've got then what parameters? We need a start X, a start Y, a stop X, a stop Y, and a paint. So start X, we need to draw 2 lines for every one at the top going up, or no, actually we could draw 1 line and just have it go right through the middle. And as long as we have a solid rectangle, well, all right, maybe we should try for the not solid rectangle. Let's see if we can't get that. Paint style dot, well, that's easy. Fill. What does fill and stroke look like? Let's find out. So we're gonna just comment this out. I want to see, let's take a look at our chart one more time. Okay, then let's see what fill and stroke's gonna look like. And then we're gonna change it so that the green ones have no fill and the red ones do have fill. Let's just pop over here real quick. Sweet. All right. Did you run? Okay, there we go. Price chart. Doesn't seem to be any difference, so we'll leave it as fill. Paint.style.fill. Which isn't the red paint style, so I guess you didn't need to set that. It defaults to fill. Which actually, let me grab that line instead because we're going to need it down here. Let's do, if we're green, we want, oh no, we can set those. So green we wouldn't need to set, no, green we would need to set to just, and we can set that permanently because we only use the, nice, that's cool. Paint.fill, what? Style. Stroke. All right, so then perhaps the green paint will only give us a stroke. And that'll look a little closer to what we see here, or here. hopefully, chart. Oh, yeah, that's a little difficult to see. So back out here, let's see. Green paint dot. We need to look for like a stroke width sort of deal. Shader stroke width equals 1f. And maybe that'll give us 1 pixel, and we'll see what that looks like. And in the meantime, we can get going on this. We'll start draw line, and we will, since we do now have an open box, we can't just draw a line through the top, so we'll need to have 2 calls to draw a line, one to draw from the bottom of the box down, one to draw from the top up. And it was start X first, which is just midpoint, and start Y is top. Yeah, we'll start going up, and stop X is midpoint, and stop Y is candle.high. Scaled height candle.high, actually. And then paint. All right, and then we'll try to draw from the bottom to the low. And since, unlike close and open, which differ if they're above or below on if it's red or green, the high and the low are always just the high and the low. So we can leave these without doing any sort of conditional statements. And let's see what that looks like from our last run. 1 might be a little small. Bump that up to 2. And then this time we'll see twice as large of a stroke width, as well as we'll see what happens with these 2 draw line calls. All right, 2 is looking a little bit better. I think 3 might be even better though. And our reds, they're kind of blocking off on our green right there. Or maybe they're not. It's really kind of hard to tell. So let's get this stroke width to 3, and red paint dot stroke width also to 3. No semicolons. This is Kotlin. Let's see if that looks better. Oh, it's already gone. Though that did look pretty good. I think we're pretty close to having it. That was funny looking. All right, got that. That looks really good. It is a little hard to see. Oh, that's interesting. They have space between them. They've got like maybe half of a candle's width between each one. Huh. Or at least a pixel. Let's put a pixel between those. So how do we do that? Candle width, which we get here. And then we draw the left edge as the width minus candle width index. What if we add, what if we do that? So what if we increase the size what is this going to do? Candles width divided by a bigger number is going to give us smaller candle width. Yes. So then we'll have a smaller candle width. Will it just be scrunched up on the right side then? Yes. Yes, it will. So that's what that did. That's not what we're looking for. We are looking to add space between them all. And, you know, sometimes you take a guess and it works and it's just wonderful. And we don't, why are those in, why is that in parentheses in the first place? All right. Got candle width, which we need to make bigger to incorporate. Okay, so we would want to make it so that each one has, I guess we can just have some candles float off in the back of the screen. That's fine. We'll take a candle width and we'll just add one to the end then. So each candle will be one bigger. Yes. But then we need that not to be reflected when drawing it. Because I think if we run it this way, it will be reflected in drawing it, and we'll just make it for a smaller chart, or rather just slightly bigger candles, with still not space between. So we take, for the left edge, we take this times minus index. Oh, and there we're just converting it to a float. The width, okay, let's see. Yep, that's not good either. So let's take a look back at this chart. It's kind of up right on the right edge. So I'm thinking we make each candle 1 pixel wider. Then we can start the left edge 1 pixel to the right, leaving us a space. Because what this says is that we want to start at the very right edge, canvas.width, and we want to subtract from that. So let's assume we're going with the very first candle that we're going to draw, the most recent one. We're going to subtract candle width times index plus 1, which is going to be, for the first one, 0th index. This is going to give us 1. So we'll minus 1 candle width, and then we'll come back to the right 1 pixel, which should leave us 1 pixel of space. I think we might have this figured out. Though I'm not sure on the interplay between this line and this line. It is kind of a lot to hold in your head. And there we go. Price chart. What are we looking at? Still too close. Maybe we need to do something a little more drastic. Let's make this 10. No, let's go for 100. Proof of concept. Yeah. And let's well, let's just go for it. All right. Price chart. It's working. It's working. So let's change that to 10. So let's look at that again, because there's space in between all of those. And wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And that's not really counting the width of the candles themselves. So 16 plus the width of the candles, yeah, it's probably 1920 by 1080, right? Because 16 would be 1600. And then the candles themselves be whatever they are. Cool. So we've changed it from 100 back to 10. 100 made it very clear that there was space in between them. Really easy to see. And look at that. Look at all that space. That's awesome. So that looks a lot better. The issue now is that we have more data over here on the left than we have here. Wow, that looks so close. That's awesome. Get that. It starts right about, yeah. That's really good. Maybe it's just behind on this last one right here. All right, so let's see if we can't get it to the point where, actually, does this show it so that when you change it, it does it from top to bottom? It gives you a little space, it looks like. But for the most part, it does keep it constrained while giving a little bit of room on the bottom, a little bit of room on the top. And it looks like there's maybe a minimum something too, because it could take some more off here, but then it would look silly. So they've got something to keep it from looking silly. All right. Now we need to figure out a way to discern how many candles are actually going to be on the screen, because our filtering method doesn't work when they're not on the screen. So how can we do that? Right now, out of our candles, we take the first 100 and we graph them. And to get the width of each candle, we do the canvas width divided by the subcandle's size, so that'll split it into equal widths of, so one subcandle would take up an equal portion of the width of the screen, and then we add 10 to that, which is going to obviously give us more room than we would have otherwise had. So we need a way to fit all of our subcandles into it plus 10, which means, wait, can we do, so each subcandle candle width needs to be a little smaller then? No, candle width is right, but it needs to have, so we need to shrink the candles themselves. Yeah. Okay, so we've got, this is tricky. Let's restate the problem. We are missing part of our graph. It goes over to here, and we want to bring it back in. So we want to squeeze the picture in, but we also want to keep the space between the guys. So that's what we added space, which is good, but that pushed it out. Now we want to be able to say how much space there is without pushing it all the way out there. So we're going to need, for the width, we need each candle to be accounted for and an extra 10. So yeah, each candle and an extra 10. Maybe that's canvas.width divided by, no, that doesn't sound right to me. Now that I think about it, let's see what it looks like though. Yeah, that's not quite right. But it does keep our space. That's good. Keeps the space. So now each candle's width is going to be whatever it is plus 10. So if we have, let's say we have 1,000 width, then, and 10 candles, we'd want there to be 90 pixels per candle and 10 per candle of just extra headroom. It was just such a good solution with this just being plus 10 at the end. That was much easier. Okay, so here's what we need to do. We need to take this. I think I got it. We got this. This is the candle width, but the candle width now includes the offset. So we need to take that 10 away from the candle width. Yeah, and go with that. So left. Yeah, is this it? Or does this give us skinny candles? And let's, on that note, these candles look fine. Well, of course, the 5-minute candles don't look good. So you can summarize by a candle for every single minute, but it's just not actively traded that much. You get a lot of this, a lot of nothing. A lot better to summarize by something real. And back to here, price chart. That looks awesome. Yep, that was it. Cool. So let's refresh. What was that solution? It was, you got to keep the candle width because this is the amount of space on the screen for each candle. Really simple. Got the width of the screen minus divided by how many candles there are. That makes sense. The tricky part was then that you wanted to say that out of that room, we're going to start the left edge here instead of here. And then we get our space. So now that we've got space in between, let's just marvel at how good we are at candle making. And actually, let's see. Let's cut this to, let's take 66 instead. Take 2/3 of it, 2/3 of what we had. So I just saw you finish running, didn't I? I guess I did. All right, there we go. That looks a little better. A little better spaced out overall. And let's see. They show this candle and this candle and this one and this one, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we are off by 6 if we want to match these guys exactly. Take 60. And price chart. There it is, folks. A perfect match. And it looks like we've got about 15 minutes left on the stream today, so we'll try to get a little more done. But just to start thinking about wrapping up, there's a lot of features we could add up here, like being able to switch this, being able to change to a line chart, which doesn't look very good anyway, so let's not do that. But being able to switch this, adding overlays is interesting. I don't know that we want to do it though. Switching all this, really an important thing that we would want to add though, especially is prices. So we'll have to add a little section off to the right that's going to be able to display price information so that you can tell what's going on with this chart. Because I mean, this just, if you look at it like this, you know nothing other than that the price has gone up, which is cool, but you don't really know much about it. switch this guy, rotate. Oh, darn it, did I rotate the wrong way? Gets me every time. All right, there we go. Order book stays. That looks great. Price chart. It still looks okay. I mean, who looks at charts in portrait mode anyway? And I think most apps that do provide a chart in portrait mode, they kind of cut it right here so you still see it in sort of a small landscape mode, just because that's how you should look at these charts. They usually do a lot more in the time direction than they do in the price direction. And let's check that, scroll to the price chart. This looks great. What else can we add? We could add volume stuff along the bottom. Oh, okay, that's important. We will want to also add time frames. So add some of that. And we can try to start looking at that now. Actually, let me check over here real quick. Cool. So let's get back to the code. And we want to keep a section. So let's try to section off some spot on the right. And to section off some room on the right, and we're going to need to get some on the bottom too, so I might as well do that as well. We want this to stop before canvas width. So instead of using all of the canvas width, let's say we want to, and 10 pixels is the space between all of these, which maybe we can make that 8 pixels. Just to give us a little more excuse me, room to each of the candles, so they can maybe be a little bigger in portrait mode. But what we want to do is add space to the right side here, which we can do by reducing the canvas width. So we can do canvas width, and we'll want to put this in parentheses to get our order of operations correct. And we're going to call it canvas width divided by, or no, rather minus, and let's call it 100 for now. And that'll do it. And then, well, we need to change down here. Left equals canvas width. Yeah, we will. So we'll need to use, okay, so let's make a new variable, val chart width equals canvas width minus 100. So chart width, okay, then we have candle width, so chart width can be, then we'll start with that. We'll start with chart width as our right edge instead of canvas.width, so that'll save us that 100 pixels on the right, we hope, and we'll find out here in just a second after these messages. That ran quickly, awesome. And price chart, and 100 pixels on the right. Yay! Cool. Yep, awesome. That we can figure out exactly how much room that's going to need to be in a little bit, but for now I think that looks just fine. Alright, so next let's add some room to the bottom. So how can we do that? We want to get real height. Is that minus TIP 56 plus minus 100. Let's just see what that does. Sometimes it's easier to just try things than it is to think about them. Or think about them too much. I have reason to believe that might work. And it does. Cool. So that's that, though 100 is clearly too much on the bottom. Let's try for more like 40. All right, so now we've got 40 instead onto our price chart, and that looks a little better. Cool. Then one of the next steps we're going to need to take is to add labels. So let's look at our inspiration here. And they have a gray line along the bottom with little dash marks that then have the times displayed like that. And then they have no line here, but they display the prices and I think the same text color and with dollar signs. So let's get a little gray line there. And then I think that'll make a good spot to seg to next week, because I don't think we want to get into parsing this out, so we can start talking about what we're going to do next week. Actually, let's do that. That's yeah, that looks good. So next week then, what we'll want to do is just keep improving on this chart, to the point that it looks a lot closer to this one. And what's going to be tricky about that and give us a little bit of trouble is figuring out where to put these markers on the bottom. So for example, this August 30th marker is determined based on a timestamp, which means that we have to take a timestamp, which let's look at the API docs. Actually, do we have some of these open that we don't need? Yeah. Yep. Figured that out. Yep, that's all good. Got that one. Yep, cool. So, and here, the timestamp is going to look like this. So we need to find a way to take a timestamp, turn it into a regular date and time, and then use, where's this? Again, we need to use that timestamp, and we need to figure out where it crosses the barrier from August 29th to August 30th. And we need to put down a little marker there. So that's going to be a fair amount of work to do and figure out, especially because then once we've got that, we need to format the time. And since I think the goal here is simple, we want to make it look like this screen. So we'll try to make it look exactly like this. We'll try to get the label for August 30th, or I suppose it'll be more like September 7th next week. And that'll get the label in there, and this label's even a little different format, so which isn't even to talk about if we come here to 15 minutes and we have to start labeling every 3 hours. So these sorts of things, and that is assuming if we put n the ability to change. Right now we're on hour, so we're looking at this one. But if we put the ability to change, we'll need to address that again and add these guys down at the bottom and find a new way to format these and find a way to figure out when the timestamp is crossed from, not being 3 a.m. to being 3 a.m. We'll need to mark that down. Though actually if we can make a nice, which you should be able to make this as sort of a continuous line of time. It shouldn't be too hard to drop down a point and say this is 6 a.m. So maybe that won't be as difficult, but we'll find out next week when we start getting the times in there. And we might also do this volume bar, because this isn't that difficult to do. Actually, I think can we knock that out in 6 minutes? Maybe. We might want to save it for next week though. Yeah, let's save it, because I don't want to run into trouble and then start going over time. Or start going over by like 15 or 20 minutes. I'll tire out. But let's see, we've got this. But if we're looking at adding the volume section to it, it looks like the volume, maybe they've topped it out. So for example, if we go to 1 day here, none of these get higher than here. So the goal of the volume section is sort of to keep it displayed to the user while also keeping it out of the way of the price chart. So it sort of tries to hide down here at the bottom. And isn't this little shape interesting here? It's got a little, like a nice perfect rounded bump, except for this one. Huh. But so we can get this in there, and we'll probably try to keep it to a max of, what is this? Maybe like 3/5, no, not 3/5, 2/5 of the screen up, maybe. Yeah, so we'll put a limit on that, just like we do with this. Just like we've been able to limit the chart to only going to this right edge and only going this far down, we'll find a way to limit the volume stuff to only going so high. We'll get a gray, we'll add spacers between it. That'll be pretty easy to draw right below this and should look really good. Add in the time stuff, and we'll get that in there, or get in the dollar signs as well. And then a thing that they don't do is you can't really scroll this chart. So luckily we don't have to implement that, because I think that would be a little more difficult than some of the other things we've done. All right, let's look at order book. Let's look if there's anything else we're missing that we might want to fix before. So this is sort of a pet peeve of mine. The order book, for some reason, when we ask it to give us orders, we get this weird, where it shows us this, you know, all the orders all the way down at 1 penny, where there's or enough to buy, you know, 20,000 Ethereum tokens for 1 penny. But there's nothing shown from 370 down, so it's not quite right. Same up here. There's a sell at almost 4,000, and it jumps from almost 1,000 to almost 4,000. So that doesn't seem quite right either. And then it jumps from 500 to 1,000. So there's we're missing some information in here. No, I'm not entirely sure why, but we have all the important information. So if we come up here, we can see that we've got this 925, 925, and this one's changing, so we're not quite up to date on that, but it's just said 36 over here, and it just said 56 over here. So these are working it out. Then there's that, yep. Although maybe this one is wrong. It keeps flipping back and forth. Hard to tell. And that's one of the issues with this app that I found personally, and making it, is just that the WebSocket information that's coming in to feed us all this data, it's just really, really hard to debug. So like, still we have this 56, it's not matching up with this 76 right here. Everything else around it looks okay. You know, we've got this 12958, 12958. So it seems to be, and then it just moved down. They're moving together, aren't they? So 7. Yeah, so those were moving together, but they were also off, which is weird. And now that it's gone, we don't have any way to figure out what was off about it. So it's really difficult to debug, especially this order book screen. So, not that anybody was considering it, but you don't want to base trading information off of a potentially buggy screen. And there we've got, this still looks really good, and I don't think there's much wrong with it. Oh, wait a minute. Actually, what it could have been was, sometimes it'll show, will it show one price point more than once? I should have checked for that. And maybe I will. I'll go back through the video of this after we're done recording and see if it was the 2 orders maybe showing at a different price somewhere. I don't know. It's hard to keep track of. But that's been sort of an issue, as well as, let's see, is the trade history keeping up? I know the trade history will show, sometimes split things out. For example, this right here. Quit moving on me. For this, okay, we'll have to find a new one. Right, so this 8.6648 at 38978 is actually 2 orders, which they've consolidated into 1. So that's another thing that we're not quite hitting quite perfectly for this app, and we're also not showing arrows or bolding the cents column over here, so we could do that too. So there's a few things left that we can knock out, but for the most part, the app's really coming together and it looks awesome. Another thing to mention is that we're not going to be doing any of this section over here, so we're not going to add the ability to trade anything or sign in or authenticate yourself and do anything like that. I don't want to especially be held responsible for any of that, so that's not within scope. So we're only focusing on kind of this section over here. Though one thing we could add is we could add very easily the ability to switch from any one of these currency pairs to a different currency pair. So for example, in the app, we are just pulling from Ethereum-US dollar, and for the WebSocket, we are subscribing to Ethereum / US dollar. So those could be pretty easy to switch, I think. So just that's probably where the project is going to end up going in the next few weeks. But it looks like we're getting close to the end, and it's just really looking nice. Another thing I might want to figure out is play around a little more with these view models to make sure that we're actually not reloading the data on a rotation. So we can do some more of that, maybe add some tests, make sure everything's working like it's supposed to. But yeah, really good progress today on the chart. Next week, looking forward to adding in the volume, lines at the bottom, times, the dollar prices over here, making it look like a really good chart. Maybe we'll even add some options to change your time frame. That'd be pretty cool. So let me see if there's any questions. Perfect. And so yeah, that's the stream. And next week we will pick up doing more work on the chart. Hope you had a good time, and I'll see you all next week. As soon as I can figure out how to open OBS.